Are you ready? By the way, congratulations to all the fish that are winning that gear on the National Football Show. You guys are dope, man. That's great stuff. By the way, does this guy get you great? Hey, we're not talking about going down to Wawa buying a fucking Eagle hat. All right? This guy's going down and getting you big gear. You know what he said to me, too? He goes, hey, Silz, you can't take any days off, man. I need your ass because I got to pay for all this fucking shit I'm giving away. All that being said, my boy, the man, the myth, the legend, the fastest growing sportscaster in the country and in Philly, it is my guy, Big Z, Xander Kraus.
What's going on, Big Silz?
How you doing, Junior? What's going on there, man?
What's that?
You ain't buying shit at Wawa, bro. You're buying it at the big place.
I'm not. We got good merch out here that we're giving to the great people of JAKIB Nation, and I'm happy to do it because, as I mentioned, they're great supporters. You missed me sing Marvin Gaye, though, to you, or whatever his name is.
Marvin Gaye, yeah. What about him? You sang it?
I gave you a little "Let's Get It On." I'm not quite as good at it as you are, though. You got some good flow, Big Silz.
Let's get it on. Come on, sugar. Anybody who doesn't like Marvin Gaye, man, has never had the hoochie coochie pie on Saturday nights in a dorm room. How you doing?
Yeah, you said get him out of this show, right? That's what you were telling the people.
How you feeling about yourself? We're now on Thursday.
I know, man.
Did you see the greatness of Hurts in the red jersey yesterday?
Yeah, and he's back out there today, and the clips are coming up of him, and everybody's loving it. But you know, A.J. Brown, he's not at practice today, and he left yesterday early after 10 minutes. What's going on there? I don't think it's anything big, but they're probably just nursing it, you know, making sure he's all good for the playoff game. He's a player. I wouldn't worry about rust. That's pure talent right there. That's a specimen. So I don't worry about anything with that. As long as he's healthy and ready to go on Sunday, he'll be good to go. But Silz, I mean, I don't know. I try not to be a homer. I really do try not to be a homer. I do not see how the Packers can win this game unless we drop a stinker. I mean, unless our offense can't move the ball at all and our defense becomes pedestrian for a week, which they haven't been in a long time. I mean, they were, I guess, against the Commanders and they gave up all those touchdowns, but I don't see it. I just don't see the talent on the Green Bay team right now. I think losing Watson, even though he doesn't get a lot of targets, but he is the guy that allows them to spread the field. They don't have him. Yeah. By the way, the guy that torched us in week 1, Jaden Reed, he hit 150 yards or so in week 1. He did that all against Devontae Maddox. Now you got Cooper DeJean in there who's playing, you know, close to a Pro Bowl, all pro level slot. Like, I just don't think the Packers match up well. And the other thing is, you know, they're a running offense. We're a running offense. Saquon's better than Josh Jacobs, but that's not what I care about. Josh Jacobs is a between the tackles runner. He's not a versatile runner. He's not a catch the ball out of the backfield type of guy. I watched him at Bama for years. I love the player. He doesn't match up well versus the Philadelphia Eagles. The teams have not been able to run on our defensive line up the middle much at all this year. You know, go back to that Pittsburgh game. Najee Harris was a nobody in that game. You know, that's a similar type of guy where he's not a versatile running back. So unless Jordan Love is slinging that ball and hitting tight windows, I feel pretty good about the game. You know, I really do. I like I said, I'm trying not to be a homer about it. I think the Eagles are they're going to out physical them and they're going to out talent them at the end. And if Jalen doesn't drop a stinker, I do think this is one game where he doesn't have to be great. You know, manage the game, no turnovers, get the ball to your playmakers, let Saquon make plays, let that offensive line go to work, and I think you're going to come out ahead in this game.
One of the things that you gave an overview of the Packers and what you saw this year. The problem with that is that every week is a different situational matchup. You don't know per position what the matchups are. And what I mean by that is, how many times have you seen teams roll into another team and you go, how the fuck does that team hang with them? It's because it's situational matchups that you have week to week. And that's why it's a bell curve type league where you don't know what you're getting on a week to week basis.
Right.
I will say this. They're an exceptionally coached football team. They're an exceptionally coached team, especially on the offensive side of the ball. They spread the ball around much better than anything Philadelphia has. But I also said this an hour ago. Hey, look, I believe Love's a better quarterback in the pocket and does a better job at
He
spreading the
is.
ball
Yeah, he
around
is.
than what hurts us. However, I think the passing game, I would be crazy to sit here and go, Silz, what would you take? Those two nobody wide receivers that the Packers have and Love? Or would you take A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Hurts? I'm going to take the Eagle guys because as a unit, I think they're more talented. But my problem would come down to Jalen again is this. I don't think Jalen can be average. I think Jalen is going to have to put a good game up, and he's going to have to be above average. 150 yards and Barkley rushing for 160 is not going to get it done because you never know in a 60-minute ball game. Like I told you yesterday, the Packers want this game to be a fourth quarter game. Give me – how many games did I say this year? The Jags got a fourth quarter game. The Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, you're right.
Fourth quarter game. All those teams had a chance to get into it. Why? Because the Eagles were not proficient enough in the passing game to put those teams away. How does Carolina – explain it to me. How does Carolina make it a fourth quarter game? How do some of those teams that you played this year, like the Jaguars, get into – those are 3-4 win ball teams this year. They had fourth quarter ball games where they had the ball and they could have won it. Were you not a better roster than those teams? Were you not playing great ball at those times? You were. I think he's going to have a really good ball game to put that team to sleep. There's no question. I agree with you. Hey, across the board, Green Bay does not have the horse. Look, Josh Jacobs is a fucking player. I like him a lot. He can ball. A couple years ago, he led the NFL in rushing. Who's got a better rushing attack? No question. Green Bay's O-line is underrated, though. They're pretty good in the middle in there, too. So that's going to be a key matchup to watch going forward in this ball game. But, yeah, Xander, you're all right in everything you said. Explain to me how Carolina and Jacksonville made them fourth quarter football games.
Well, I think it's going to be a fourth quarter football game. If you look at the Packers,
that's all Green Bay wants is their shot.
Right, and I think that's fair. And I think when you're a 7 seed and you're going up against a 14-win team, you understand that. I think that Green Bay looks at the Eagles as, Green Bay is a good team, but we're the matchup. They have to go up against us right now, and I think they're, look, where you're right, Silz, is Green Bay has not been blown out. They had 6 losses this year. Obviously, the one in Week 18 versus the Bears, and all 5 other losses came to the top 3 teams in the NFC. 2 to the Vikings, 2 to the Lions, 1 to the Philadelphia Eagles. Well, in those games, they lost, but to the Eagles by 5 points. They lost. This is their biggest loss of the year. Was a 10-point loss, 24-14 to the Lions. Then they lost to the Lions 34-31. They lost to the Vikings 31-29, and they lost to the Vikings 27-25. So they've had all their games. You're right. They do have a weird ability to keep games close. And what's ironic about it is Jordan Love plays his best football when they're down in games. When they're down in games, that's when Jordan Love starts letting that thing fly. And
he's better from behind.
He's way better from behind. And it's almost like if you're way better from behind because you're throwing the ball, why not make that a bigger part of your offensive strategy? But Green Bay hasn't. John's been crushing them all week about it on Birds 365. He thinks they made a drastic mistake by making it a run-first team in Green Bay. And, I think he's right. I think he's right. Jordan, like I watched last night, I've been all week, I've been going and rewatching some Green Bay games. I watched some Eagles games, and I've just been kind of enjoying football because it's almost gone, Silz, and it makes me depressed to think about it, honestly. Can you think about that for a second? I'm not saying we're gonna, but we could have our last post-game show this week. I'm not saying we're gonna, but we could. I hate that thought because I'm not ready to wrap the season up yet. We're on a generational run right here.
If that happens, JAKIB Sports will explode for the next 6 months.
I'm enjoying the season, man.
Hey, for the next 6 months, if that happens, JAKIB Sports will explode if they get dumped in the opening round.
You're right. But anyway, I feel good about the game. I think Green Bay will keep it close. I think they should be passing the ball more. Like I said, I went back and rewatched the game last night. I rewatched their playoff game last year. And I know it's a different team now. I understand that. But I just wanted to see what Jordan Love looked like. And I'm going to watch the game they lost. I think they lost to the 49ers the week after that in the conference final. I'm going to watch that game tonight.
San Francisco was healthier then, too.
Jordan
He had a
Love,
better roster.
Jordan Love destroyed the Cowboys in that game. Destroyed them.
Cowboys were healthy, too.
He dissected them through the air in that game. Not a ground attack. Now, they had a way different style. Even their running game last year. They had a good running game last year, but they had a versatile back. He used Aaron Jones out of the backfield in the passing game so many times. Even jet sweeps, even way big outside runs. Josh Jacobs doesn't do any of that. And I think it's totally taken its toll on Jordan Love, who liked the check down. Not every quarterback likes the check down. I think Jordan Love thrived on getting the ball to Aaron Jones, and he's a playmaker. Aaron Jones makes plays happen in open space. He's been doing it all year now for the Vikings. And I just think they're a way more one-dimensional offense right now. And unless those dudes, Romeo Doubs and, Jaden Reed and Tucker Kraft, unless they step up with crazy games and Jordan Love's delivering that ball, I don't think they're going to have enough. It doesn't mean I think it's going to be a blowout. I'm not predicting a blowout in this game. It's playoff football, but I just think we're a better team, man. I think we have too much, for them to overcome.
I'm going to play a game with you here. You ready?
Let's do it.
Key players and coaches for Sunday. Obviously, I got Hurts one. I think we've talked enough about him. Let's move on. How big is Barkley's role in this game?
Barkley's role's got to be big, man. It's got to be big.
Big meaning what?
Big meaning 6 yards a carry. Because if you do that, then you're going to
number 4 ranked defensive run. Wow.
Number 7 ranked run defense. Number 5 overall defense. You're right; they are a good overall defense, but I think it has to be big because if it's not, let me play the other side. If it's not big, right? If Barkley doesn't have that type of impact,
you're right.
What's the Eagles' offensive game plan? Then you're going to go into a scenario that we haven't played since week 4 when we lost, by the way.
And since
you go pass happy and you put the ball in Jalen's hands and you make him throw to win. That's not what you want to do. You want Jalen Hurts exploiting the passing game off of runs where the defense is stacking the box or the defense is putting another man in there to try and take Saquon out. You get single coverage with A.J. Brown, and you take that. You take that advantage all game. But if they're stopping the run and Jalen is not able to, or Jalen's going to have to win through the air, I think that's trouble territory for the Eagles. And that's not a knock on them. I just think it's not conducive to the style.
It's the way they won this year. It's their identity.
It's not the way they've won. It's not the way they've won. So I think Saquon's role is probably biggest on the team as it has been all year.
Okay. How big a role will Goddard have in this game? Don't you want to test those linebackers out?
Exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. And
Get the ball out of his hands quick, too, not having to sit back and take sacks.
That's the other thing. Well, what you just said is exactly what I was thinking. And then I was also thinking key third downs, I like Goddard. I like Goddard in those situations. And in the playoffs, when you got to move the chains and you need to pick up a first down, I like Goddard. So I'm going to make a bold prediction on Goddard and say I think he's going to have a bigger role in this game than Devontae Smith will. Okay? I think Dallas Goedert's going to have a decently big role in this football game. And it's, it's time. He is such a good player. He's one of the players that I really can't understand because I said in the offseason, and I got a lot of shit for it. I said, I think Dallas Goedert's overrated. And, people ripped into me and I'm like, I didn't mean that from like a talent.
Well, put it in context.
I think he's actually a top talent at tight end in the league. 1, he's always injured. 2, he's not in an offense that's utilizing his skill set. And it's really the injury thing. But those are the 2 main reasons that I think he's overrated. And maybe it's not that he's overrated. Maybe it's more just that he's not utilized properly here. And I think he's such a damn good player. He's tough to guard, man. You don't find tight ends often that can run like he can run, that can catch like he can catch, and can block. He's a good weapon to have, but we just don't use him enough. And I think we got to use him this game. I think we will.
Goddard would have 1,400 yards a year in Kansas City.
Well, they're a tight end heavy team. No doubt about that.
Because Andy's a tight end heavy coach.
Yeah.
I think the two things in the passing game on Sunday that are going to be something for Green Bay to have to stop. Like you said, I think that third down pass and getting the ball out of his hand quick and no slants to AJ. If I'm Green Bay, I got to stop those slants, and I got to stop. Again, I don't want Goddard beat me on the seam against my linebackers because I don't really think they're superstar players there. That's something for me. If I'm the defensive guy, Hafley, I want to make sure that those guys I don't know what's a more difficult play to stop in Philly, the tush push or the AJ slant. I've never seen a fucking guy cover that slant yet to this day since he put an Eagle uniform on.
Yep.
He gets in that slant and he runs that slant. His yards after a catch are insane stupid. That's how good he is.
He is. He's an unbelievable player, man. They have to use AJ Brown. Like, okay, good. You're a run team in the regular season. Great. Saquon Barkley has 2,000 yards. We don't need to get working. No, fuck that bullshit. You have AJ Brown. AJ Brown is a top 3 receiver in the NFL. If you think we're going to march our way to a Super Bowl by him getting 3, 4, 5 targets a game, I think we're sadly mistaken. Get that guy going early and often. That will make life easier for Saquon. It'll make life easier for Jalen Hurts, and it'll make life easier for the entire offense, who needs a player of that caliber to contribute if you want to go to the Super Bowl. That we cannot have the same mindset or the same approach, even as a fan base, with this passing game in the playoffs. We have to get AJ Brown involved. We have a great team with great players. Get them involved. You're not going to win a Super Bowl not using a guy with that caliber of talent. Use them. I think they're going to, but I'm just saying, I think it's going to be important to use him this week, and I think it's going to keep Green Bay on their heels. You know, it's good. If Silz, think about it. If the AJ slant's working, like you just said, what do you do? If you're Jeff Hafley, what do you do? What do you do? Because now the slant's working. Now it's opening up the passing game. I can no longer stack the box to stop Saquon Barkley. Saquon's going to get a big run eventually. It's only a matter of time. He's probably going to have a couple 15, 20-yard runs in there too.
You know what that slant opens up? It opens up Devontae down the sidelines.
I agree 100%. And I also think it opens up Dallas Goedert a little bit. You know, I'd like to see more. Also, I don't want to see these long, like, I know Kellen, I don't know what he was trying to do. Maybe it was all part of a process to try and kind of stack things together and build a better offense. Well, now we're in the moment. Now you're in do or die. We don't need these long developing routes. Get Devontae Smith open 7 yards, 8 yards, 9 yards upfield. Get AJ Brown coming across the middle. Get Dallas Goedert in a spot where, look, we have Jalen Hurts. What's one of the most common things Jalen Hurts does in his game? He rolls to the right. Understand that. Play to it. Give him an outlet. Keep Dallas Goedert over there 5 to 8 yards deep over on the right side of the field. Run those routes. Be creative. Make it work for your quarterback. And I don't think Kellen's done a great job of that this year. And I'd like to see him do that in this game because I think it's going to be important to do that.
Number 4, I think that Carter and Davis have to be exceptional in this game.
I agree.
Stopping Josh Jacobs. Because if you get play action going, this is exactly what happened last year, even with Jones a little bit. When they had play action going in that playoff game against the Cowboys, they fucking destroyed Dallas. Dallas had 2 Pro Bowl corners. They ate them up, and it wasn't a ball game because LaFleur is an exceptional play caller. He spreads it around. Sandra, those guys aren't A-plus talent. You know what Green Bay has? They have B players that at times play like A players because the quarterback spreads them around and you get play action. What's the one thing that football team does exceptional also? They do a lot of shit under center. And that's because that guy knows how to set blocking schemes. He is really I disagree with Jaws. I think he is a good player. I think he's had a really banged up year this year.
He has.
But if you do not stop the run and he gets a little bit better of a performance than he did in week 1, say Jacobs goes for 125 yards, that's going to be a very difficult ball game for Philly to win.
I do. I agree with you 100%. And by the way, I do think Jacobs is going to have a little harder time. I mean, that defensive line, for some of the faults that they have,
gotten better though since week 1.
Who? Green Bay's?
Yep.
Oh, it certainly has. They've started to rely more and more on it, almost in a similar way to Philly, where
Yeah.
they've relied so much on it that the passing game has taken a hit because of it. And I think that bodes well for the Eagles this week. Now, where you're right is if you don't get a good game from Jordan Davis, and Jacobs can run up the middle with the tackle, between the tackles, you're probably in a tough spot defensively, because then you're going to open everything up for Jordan Love, versus if you're stopping that run, you're going to almost have them where you want them, and you can play whatever defense you want, when you're in second and long, third and long situations. You know what I mean? If they can run, if they're getting 4 or 5 yards on every first down, Jordan Love's going to do whatever he wants on second and third down. That's going to allow Matt LaFleur, as a creative offensive mind, to draw up whatever plays he wants in the game. If you keep them in second and long, third and long, not only does it limit what LaFleur can do and what Jordan Love can do, it opens up what Vic Fangio can do. It allows Vic Fangio to play his defense however he wants to play it. You keep them on their heels instead of putting yourself on your heels. So actually, you could maybe argue those two guys are the most important guys for the Eagles in this game. Yeah.
Absolutely, you could there. By the way, all super chats will be read at the end of the segment. Guys, do me a favor, please. Hit the like button. Number 5, Nolan Smith, Huff, Sweat have to create pressure. Brian, we'll get to you too, brother. They have to get sacks in this ball game. You know what? I'll tell you what I'll even say. You don't maybe have to get him on the ground, but you have to pressure him and move him around in the pocket. You can't let him get in rhythm and play in that zone. I heard Gary Cobb on with you. I'm going to disagree with G. Cobb. I don't believe Hafley's going to play any man. I don't think he's going to try to switch that up because.
You mean Fangio?
Yeah, I think he's going to.
Wait, you mean Fangio? You said Hafley, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Cobb was saying Fangio is going to run man. I didn't agree either.
No, I meant LaFleur against Vic.
Yeah.
That I don't believe Vic is going to play man. I think Vic's going to stay what's made him successful and not upset the apple cart. And I don't think he's going to mix. They play 2% man coverage all year. Why would you fucking come out of your school now and play 12%, 15% man coverage when you only play at 2%? Do you understand?
Yeah.
The Eagle corners played 2% man coverage all year.
Yeah, and that's not what
would they go into that game doing that?
I agree 100% with you. I wasn't going to push back on G Cobb. Obviously, he's an OG. I'm not going to say, but I agree. I don't see Fangio doing that. He hasn't done it all year. And by the way, if Fangio could play whatever defense he wanted, he wouldn't go to man. He likes zone defense. That's what he likes. So, I don't think they're going away from that. But I think to Gary's point, maybe wasn't articulated like he wanted it to be. But to his point, I think he was saying with Watson out, because they're no longer going to have that big deep threat, it kind of changes the way Fangio can approach defensively with it's a shorter field, so your zones can take up different. And if like, let's just say they're down 14, Packers are down 14. What are they doing? They got to throw the ball. Well, they don't have many options. It's Tucker Kraft. It's Jaden Reed. They got Romeo Dobbs. They got Wicks, who's got drops out who gets drops like crazy. I think to Cobb's point, he was saying with no Watson out there, now I can let's say Jaden Reed starts torching us. I can drop 2 guys on him, take him out of the game, and force Jordan Love to beat me in a different era. I think that's what he was trying to say, but you're right. They're not going to go into a man coverage.
But, and again, like I said, I'm not going to sit there and speak for Gary. He's on with us all the time. We love him to death here at JAKIB. But
he's awesome.
I'll say this.
I'll say
this to you. What I think he meant was I think he wants to shrink the zone. Like,
yeah,
I think he wants to shrink the zone.
Yep.
Like, instead of keeping it 2D pie and dropping them back.
Exactly.
I think he wants to, maybe what he meant was shrink the zone down a little bit and give him shorter windows to throw into.
Yeah, and almost dare him to beat you over the top,
that's
right?
what
Almost
I think. When I heard Gary talking, I think he meant that.
Yeah, I think you're right.
On the man there a little bit.
I think you're right. Yep.
All right. I said that the safeties, Reed Blankenship and CJ, have to play great. And I mean by this, they have to be short tacklers. They have to be playmakers back there, because that is the key to the middle of the zone. Those guys have to play well. And again, if the linebackers are playing well, the safeties are going to play well. It all goes hand in hand. Look at the heart of the defense, Xander. The run defense, 2 inside backers, and your 2 safeties. That heart lifeline in the middle of the defense, they have to have a big game. Because why? then you can cut the zone in half. If you can cut the zone in half, you're shortening up the windows for Love to have to make a decision in his progression. Right. If it's fucking wide open like that and you've got those zones open, he's got a full field to see. You want the beginning, you want the heart of your defense to make it difficult, pre-snap reads, all that shit. And that starts with the safeties. I think the safeties have to play exceptionally well in this game against the Green Bay Packers because one thing they do great, again, they spread the ball around. 6 different guys with 30 or more catches. I mean, they get it around. They may not be household names, but they move the ball around.
Yeah, no, you're right. I agree 100%. And actually, I'll go as further and say the safeties are big on the other side of the field too for Green Bay, right? That's their playmaker back there, Xavier McKinney. People might not be ready to admit this, but he does have Jalen Hurts' number a little bit. He picked him off in week 1. He had some picks on him when he was in New York with the Giants, played with him at University of Alabama. They know each other well, and when players know other players' tendencies, it can be good and bad, right? Sometimes it can cause you to get beat, but at other times it can also give you a play. And Xavier McKinney's been a pick merchant this year. He's got 8 interceptions on the year, one of the best safeties in the league this year. So similar to what you just said about the Eagles safeties, in a different way, I think Green Bay safeties are going to be a big thing too. But you're right. I mean, it kind of goes back to, again, the Cobb point of safeties are going to be big because they can keep stuff in front of them, right? Without the deep threat of Watson. And it's going to allow – I think it's going to – don't you think that the way Green Bay is going to have to play offensively in this game, don't you think it kind of bodes well for what the Eagles defense does well, where you don't give them – they're not going to have huge opportunity to go over the top. If they do, it will be marginal or limited at best. You can keep the zone in front of you. You can keep short and intermediate routes are going to be prominent all over the field. And I think it kind of gives Vic Fangio a chance to capitalize and create some, maybe even create some turnovers. But the one thing about Jordan Love is, you brought up getting some pressure, and obviously pressure is the great equalizer versus any quarterback, so that goes without saying. But Jordan Love also has a weird ability he throws really well when he moves out of the pocket. Like when Jalen moves out of the pocket, Jalen's looking to run or throw the ball out of play, basically. When Jordan Love moves in the pocket, he moves and looks to reset his feet and get the ball downfield. And he's actually really good at it. He's got a big arm, very he can throw the ball really freaking hard, 60 plus miles an hour if he needs to. And
he's got better footwork than Jalen.
Way better. That's he's not a runner. He's an athlete. He's not a runner.
No,
right?
he understands
how to set his moves in the pocket to move the ball, to throw the ball downfield. So, if we got to be careful of that. If you're going to get pressure and move them, that's great, but make sure you're holding those coverages on the back end. And that's where I think the safeties, to your point, are going to have a big role in this game.
If you want to put another tape on and you want to go and you want to make a comparison, Green Bay moves the ball around the same way Kansas City moves the ball around. Now, Kansas City has added a new dynamic this year with Xavier Worthy because they're trying to make you have to respect the deep pass. But quite frankly, Mahomes is not a deep passer. He's never been. Brady was never a deep passer.
Yeah.
It's always been an intermediate passing game and the short dump-offs. That's what Green Bay does. And why does that come out to be like that? Well, where did he learn all this from? He learned all this from Kyle Shanahan when he learned how that was all, when he was on that coaching staff in Washington. Who did Kyle Shanahan back in the day work for? Worked for Mike. Mike worked for Holmgren. All goes to Andy Reid. It's these guys in this tree that you have to understand the philosophical way that they approach the game and what they're trying to do. LaFleur's not a deep throw. That's why when Watson was the Xavier Worthy on that team. Okay, he was the guy that made you have to think they're going to go deep down the field. Right. But like Wayne Larrivee said the other day, he's just not been healthy enough for them to do that. Their main objective is to put everything underneath. Why is it right now? I mean, look, Andy Reid, Mike Holmgren, Andy Reid, and all the way the tight end is going to be an essential part in this game for the Packers. You watch them threaten the zone. I'm going to tell you, there's 2 players here. Here's my number 7. Zach Bond and N'Kobe, because that tight end they have and Josh Jacobs, dude, Jacob's got 40 catches this year.
Yeah.
He catches the ball out of the backfield.
I know he's not great at it though. He's not
but still, they go to him.
He's got good hands. Yeah, he's not versatile and shifty.
He's got 1,800 yards in total offense this year. He's not fucking nothing out of that. I mean,
you're right. That's not nothing, man. 1,800 yards is no.
And I think Vaughn is going to have to be a short tackler on him in the run game and also in the pass game. And you're going to have Xander. I'm telling you, they're going to attack the middle of that zone with Jacobs and that tight end, and they're going to see if they can cover it. That's what Gary, I think, was kind of hitting on, that they had to shrink that zone down a little bit. It's going to be imperative that those wide receivers in Green Bay catch the ball and are going to be able to make plays, because what I would do if I was Vic, I would shrink that down and make those targets inside the Jacobs and the tight end even harder.
Yeah, I agree.
Down to Vaughn and Nakobe Dean playing.
Yep, I agree.
Without a doubt, Kellen and Vic, in my opinion, have to call great games. They have to call clean games. And I think Vic I'm less worried about Vic because here's one thing that I see.
Right?
Let me give you one thing that I see with him as an overall. And I had a conversation last night with Dave Wannstedt. We'll get him on again. Remember what Dave said at the beginning of the year? It's never going to be scheme that's going to stop. It's going to be the players. Vic's going to put the scheme in. It's going to work. Sure enough, everything Dave said was nails on with Fangio. But you know what he said? And Nick even said it the other day about Vic Fangio. Vic Fangio has a great fucking feel for the game and situational play calling, putting plays in, when to blitz, when not to blitz, when to play a little tighter on the ball, when to put those guys maybe in a man or bring pressure, slide the defense, move the front, play a 5. He's got a really great knack. I don't really believe that Kellen has a great feel. You know what I think Kellen has? I think he has a great knowledge of the offense in what he sees the team's ability is, which means this. He sees it and why it looks. Don't you agree? There's more of a fluid look to the defense. When you look at the offense and how he calls it, it's either here or here. It's not all here. And so, but when you watch the defense, it's all here, and it just looks smoother when they blitz, when they play man, when they go off the ball more, when they tighten up. He has more of the players in the right positions. Kellen does it like this. Well, fuck it. If we can't pass the ball, we're going to run it this week.
Right.
We're going to continue to run it. It just looks a little more, like I said, choppier on offense than on defense.
I agree 100%. And you know what it actually brings me back to, Silz, is one of your first takes on the hiring of Kellen Moore. You said when we hired him, he's never coached a quarterback like this. You know, and I think maybe that's part of the reason where it doesn't look as fluid. I don't know I think he's still learning it. He's still figuring out how to get Jalen in rhythm. He's still figuring out what plays to run when you have a 3rd and long situation with a quarterback like Jalen Hurts. I think that's part of what you're seeing with the offense. And again, credit to you. I mean, you talked about that the day he was hired. The news broke he was hired, and that's the first thing you said. Well, he coaches passers. He's a passing coach. You know, what's he going to be able to do with Jalen? And I think it was a good take by you, and I think that shows. I think, you know, it's going to be that's why this game, and I said it at the start of the segment, and you just hit on it again. Kellen's going to be in the sight this game, man. This is a Kellen Moore game. I told you, I was talking to my Cowboy buddy, and he's like, Kellen Moore didn't call good games in our playoff games. Now, Dak had some bad plays, and Dak threw some interceptions and stuff, but
Dak panics.
Dak does panic. I mean, you watched that. Good gracious. That game last year when they didn't have Kellen Moore was the ugliest playoff performance I've ever seen. I mean, he had 2 picks in the first half. They were down 21-0. I mean, good God. Cowboys, you can – it just cracks me up, man. You really can. That taxes the Cowboys choking in the playoffs. I mean, it's as good as gold, baby. It comes every year, but – no, you're right. You're right. It's a Kellen Moore game, and he's got to have a big game. He's got to understand the moment, and I think he will, but I'm hoping to something you always say. You're hoping. I haven't seen it yet, so I'm not going to act like he's going to do it. You know, and I think that's where you're probably right about Kellen. I'm hoping that he calls a good game here and he knows what to do if shit hits the fan.
You know, a play caller has like a blueprint to his DNA, and it doesn't change.
Right.
Okay. He's kind of wobbled it this year because you know what he did. But you know how he wobbled it? It's what I said. He compartmentalized it. Run, pass, run, pass, run, pass. Where Vic is like, let me look at the personnel here. And Vic is like a guy who puts a magic potion together or a stew together or a soup using all the great ingredients to come out. Kellen can't put a great ingredient together to make a great soup because, it just doesn't look like he's a cook or he's a chef. He's more of a guy that compartmentalizes. Well, Saquon's having a great year, so we're going to fucking ride this horse to the fucking pony. We're going to ride this guy as much as possible. That's not what Vic does. And that's why when you look at the defense, you go, name me one guy on that football team on defense is in the top 5 of any position in the league. Jalen Carter? Right. Name me another guy. You want to go Zach Bond? A lot of people around the league wouldn't, but I would. Okay, who else? Who's a top 5 guy at any other position? I could do this on offense. Jordan Milano, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, Lane Johnson, Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown. Shit, you can make the comment that maybe Devontae is a top 10 guy. You can make the comment that the tight end, when healthy, is a top 5 guy. On defense, you don't have one fucking player on that side of the ball. If you want to go Bond, fine.
I'll go Carter too. I'll go Carter.
That's one of the 5 players that you would go top 5 players in the sport.
What about Carter?
Oh yeah, put a Carter in there.
Yeah, I'll put Carter in there, top 5.
Okay, you got one guy over there. But what he's done is, wait a minute though. What he's done, it's not a rip. What he's done
I see what you're saying.
He's made an entire unit number 1.
He is extracting the most out of his talent.
Absolutely.
This is what you're going for. Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. No, there's no doubt. I mean, they're spending how much money on the offense? That's why we debated about this a couple weeks ago. Everybody in the chat was ripping me for this. So, well, not everybody, but a couple people were. They were like, "You're wrong about Kellen. It's Jalen." And I'm like, well, I still don't think Kellen's doing a good job. He's got so much damn talent on that offense. He's not pulling enough out of it. And you look at Vic, he's given a couple rookies, a couple project players and Zach Bond, a couple guys who haven't proven shit in their second and third year, and Nolan Smith and Nakobe Dean, an undrafted guy in Reed Blankenship, a 34-year-old corner and Darius Slay, and he's made the number 1 defense in the NFL. I mean, that guy's cooking up a good stew over there. That's for sure. That's a chef that knows how much seasoning to put in a pot, Silz.
That's why I say this. Okay, let's do this here. If all of a sudden you see a fucking shitty playoffs, I think Kellen Moore's job is on the line this playoffs. I think his job's on the line. Why? Here's this. If they don't win the Super Bowl, the only thing that saves his job is the Super Bowl because he didn't improve anything.
Another new coordinator, though? Don't you think they're going to want to give 2 years?
Yeah, I do. But I don't think he's improved the goddamn thing over there. I think
the conversation will be had. I mean, hey, I'm not paying $60 million a year on wide receivers to have a 31st ranked offense. Hey,
I'm not $110 million in 3 guys.
Exactly. Goddard's making what, $16, $17 million. I mean, even your wide receiver 3. I know he stinks, or I know he hasn't been productive, at least in this offense. Probably doesn't stink. You saw what he could do with Tanner McKee, but I sent a 3rd-round pick for this guy. Like, Kellen, I got to get more out of this passing offense, man. And I think those conversations will be had if they come up short. But like I said, right now I'm in wait-and-see mode on playoffs, right? Like, I'm not ready to make any sweeping changes or movements or speculate on who should go where until I see how this thing plays out. Because I think what the playoffs are going to show us very clearly, at least this is my opinion, we'll see if it plays out like this, is that what are the problems on the Philadelphia Eagles, right? People can tune into the Dan Sileo show and he'll tell you it's Jalen Hurts. Well, if you go over here and listen to this WIP show, they'll tell you that Jalen Hurts is great, and there's a lot of conversation about that, right? I'm not saying one's right or wrong. I'm saying there's speculation. A lot of times people can just be like, hey, we're won 14 games. Like, we're good, and I think that's where people fall. What this playoffs will show, though, if we get bounced, is where is your weakness? Where is the deficiency? Is it Jalen Hurts? Is it Kellen Moore? I think you're going to be able to see that a lot more clearly if the team's not able to go the full distance. But I feel pretty good, man. I feel pretty good about the team being able to go. I think some of the questions that you brought up early on are some of my biggest questions going into the playoffs, and that's a credit to the way you see the game and the way you break it down. We just talked about the Kellen Moore stuff. That might be top 3 for me. What's Kellen Moore going to do, if you're down to the Detroit Lions in the NFC title game and you have to throw back into it? Have you limited yourself so much that you don't know how to call that game? Have you putting so much into the running game that you didn't learn your quarterback and how he operates? Because is Jalen the most talented passer in the world? No, but we've seen Jalen throw well. We've seen Shane Steichen pull it out of him. We've seen it look better than it's looked. Has Kellen relied so much on the running game that he never learned? Remember early in the season we talked about, one of the biggest things we talked about was, and this is the defensive side of the ball, but the same philosophy applies on the offense. How long is it going to take for Vic and the players to learn the system, right? To learn and grow and build. Part of the projection was 2025 is going to be our best year for defense.
There is no offensive system in Philly.
Right. And they haven't learned it. What they've done is they just put the ball in Saquon's
offensive system.
Exactly. They put the ball in Saquon's hands, and in a way, he covers up a lot of problems, and the winning does too. So I think we're going to learn a lot about that this week.
This guy right here, would you hire Kellen Moore to take your young quarterback and develop him?
Well, it depends on my type of quarterback. If I'm the Commanders and I just drafted Jaden Daniels,
no way.
I wouldn't sniff him. I wouldn't sniff him.
If you're Chicago, would you hire Kellen Moore for Caleb?
No, but if you draft Drake May, maybe. Right?
Drop that guy.
You see what I'm saying? Like Kellen Moore has shown that he can do that. I don't know if he's proven to your Well, Josh Allen's just a fucking special player.
Okay.
Man. I mean, you don't find guys like that can throw the ball like he can, that can run like he can, they're athletic like he is. I mean, that dude, look, I know.
I would not hire Todd Monken to coach Joe Burrow.
Well, I think Todd would probably be decent. I think one thing I liked about Todd.
He needs a guy who's like Todd Monken coaching.
Todd adapted. That's what I loved about Todd.
Todd Monken coaching Jaden Daniels would be great.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Todd adapted.
Kyler Murray, like that shit. He'd be great at that.
Kellen didn't adapt. Kellen handed the ball off to Saquon. Well, I mean specifically about the quarterback, right? He didn't adapt to the quarterback. He said, okay, we're going to be run first team. Great. When you have a top 2 O-line and the best running back in football, it works. If it doesn't work in the playoffs, I think you're clearly going to be able to see the problem. But we'll see, man. It's going to be it's an exciting time of the year, Big Silz. Let's
do these supers. We got our boy Farzetta at the bottom of the hour.
Clifton, thank you, bro. A lot of supers from you today, man. Thank you, bro. I appreciate that. Clifton says, Love has not been impressive this year. He had the best numbers for high percentage passes. Green Bay route combination is what is amazing. The wide receivers are schemed open very well, and that's all their head coach.
That's correct.
Yes, that's their head coach.
And he was in charge of that with Los Angeles, with the Rams.
Yep.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think he was in Los Angeles when Kupp broke that fucking record when he got all those yards and receptions. If I'm not mistaken, maybe I'm wrong on that. It might be wrong, but he was there in LA at the time when they were building that offense with Sean McVay. As a matter of fact, I think he was in Green Bay at the time because he was with Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, he was with Rodgers. Let me tell you, man, he's a really good play calling guy, man. He's really good.
He's a really good coach. I think he's actually underrated.
He is.
I mean, listen, when you go,
can I tell you one thing I have a problem with him? I think he gets a little conservative. He gets a little conservative he's got a little Andy Reid Philly in him where he's a little conservative in his play calling with 2 minutes into the half. And when his at the end of the ball game, I think he gets conservative. That one year they had Aaron Rodgers up there. They were playing, I think, in the NFC title game. And they never got the ball back. They went, they didn't go for it on fourth down. They were down in their red zone and they didn't go for it.
It's become a big competitive advantage in the NFL to be aggressive at the right times. I mean, look at Dan Campbell, and that's what I didn't like about Sirianni. And I'll fully admit that I'm a bit hypocritical here because I criticized Nick for some of his play calling in when you were being aggressive, right, in some of those spots. But I think to Dan Campbell's credit, he has stuck to his guns so much about it that he swung the pendulum back to this is such an advantage for me and for my team that I can make the most out of this versus Nick. He kind of heard some of the noise and got a little bit more conservative. I'd almost wish Nick said, fuck you, Xander Krause. I don't give a fuck what you say about me. I'm going to be aggressive. I think that mindset would bode better. And to your point about LaFleur, you're right. He's conservative at times, and I think that can come back to haunt you,
Yeah.
especially when you're going up against teams in the NFC, like the Eagles and the Lions and the Vikings and teams like that. But the thing I love most about LaFleur, or where I think he's underrated, is, dude, you won't find many coaches that lose a Hall of Fame quarterback and go on to the playoffs with a first-year starter and win a playoff game in the way that they did. You just won't find that much. And then he has another 11-win season. Another 11-win season for him. I mean, I know they're not I know they have their issues, and I know they're not the greatest team, and they finished third in their division, but I think LaFleur's a damn good coach. And Clifton, by the way, great point by you, man. Clifton again says, Green Bay has been playing a lot of too high after Zaire went down, and he's been exploited in the run by the Bears the past week. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Remember something, Clifton. That's an interdivision game. They're going to know one another in personnel. And remember something: the difference between divisional games and regular games, when you have them on your schedule, what's the one thing that you do in your division to your opponent? You draft and you sign to the players and the teams in your division, which that's why those games are always tight and there are always upsets in those, because why do you think Marcus Latimer, okay, why do you think he was traded for by the Commanders from New Orleans? To stop AJ. That's why, in the things you do to be able to build your football team, you first have to win your division. So I agree with you, though. That was a shitty loss to the Bears. They needed that win, but
that was really their only bad loss of the year, though.
Yeah, I mean, it was.
Call a spade a spade.
A game they needed.
Yeah, but they have slipped 2 straight now. 2 straight losses for them. So maybe that has something to do with this playoff game. We'll see. Brian Pumper checks in. He says, these Jalenites in the chat are soft as hell. Not my fault. Your hero does everything slow. Motherfucker plays with a permanent Gatorade symbol next to it.
Damn, motherfucker, man. Now you're going in, huh, Brian? Motherfucker, damn.
MFer, he said. I guess I threw that in there.
Motherfucker, all right.
Pump, I love you, brother. Thank you, man. I appreciate you.
No doubt, dude.
Clifton again. Clifton, thank you, man. I appreciate that a lot. Stopping the Green Bay tight end and 12-man sets is key. Yeah, dude, they have 2 good. What's that second tight end's name? Shit, I'm blanking on his name. Not
What is that? What is that guy?
I'll get it for you because he's good. Their second tight end is good. Not Tucker Kraft, Luke Musgrave. That's it.
Yeah, Luke
Musgrave. He can play. He can move the sticks. Musgrave. That's it. Yep. Thank you in the chat.
That guy, I think he played, if I'm not mistaken, I think he played at Pac-12 somewhere like in the Oregon State or something like that.
Yeah.
I remember him in college.
Good player. Yeah. And Jordan Love likes him, so he'll get him the ball. They got 2. They could go to a lot of 2 tight end sets, especially without Watson. So that'll be interesting to watch. Good stuff there. Thanks, everybody in the chat. A couple more here. Brian, again. Pump, thanks, man. He says, sorry, fellas, I don't trust that dude with the number 1 on his jersey. He's not a needle mover, especially after he hurt his brain. McKee is really him. Well, Brian.
Okay, I'm going to say this from now on. We're going to start calling a little show here, Ebony and Ivory. Brian and Big Silz. I don't know who's different. The Jalenites, he can't stand Hurts. I can't stand that style of Hurts. From now on, Brian, Ebony and Ivy. Ebony and Ivory live together in perfect harmony. There you go, bro.
Pump, thank you, man. Josh Herman checks in. Josh, thank you, bro. Josh says, been watching some Baker tape. He reminds me a little bit of Brett Favre in the sense of when he makes a decision, he lets it rip. No questions asked. Well, that is certainly the truth.
Kelsey took my take from yesterday.
He took your take.
I think that Buck team is a sleeper team, dude. I really do. I think the Bucks have the components and the coaching too. I don't know, man. I mean, I like that Buck team. I'm going to be. They're going to have to play every game on the road, and I don't know if they can do it. But boy, I'll tell you, I wouldn't want to see that team in the first round. Because they can fucking get the ball down the field and they can run it now.
How do you feel about this playoff game? You don't think of a pick. You don't think of a prediction. Just general matchup, Eagles versus Packers. If you were talking sports in San Francisco right now, what would you say about these 2 teams matching up? Who's got the advantage? Like, what do you see from a macro perspective?
I think I think the two guys going against one another, Matt LaFleur and Vic Fangio, is going to be very interesting to watch. I want to see if Jordan Love ups his game like he did a year ago in the playoffs against the Cowboys, and he plays like he did last year. Because if he does, boy, that's going to raise his stock and how I see him. That, he kind of went through a tough season this year, and if he can elevate his game and make that game a fourth quarter game, and you're going like this, holy shit, he put Vic on his heels. That's something to keep an eye on there for me. The Jacobs factor too against the triangle with Zach Bond and the two tackles in the middle. How's that going to play out? Because I think Green Bay's underrated inside, and maybe the best group of guys that they've played all year will be the center and the two guards.
You're right.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's going to be the best that they've played as a group inside there. So I think this game's going to be pretty close. I think, you know what? Would it shock me if the Eagles pulled away late with talent and they say 1 by 8 or something like that? No. But would it shock me if it came down to a kick? No. So I think you're anywhere between 9 points and 1 point. You're kind of in there. It's just to me, it's all going to depend. Green Bay has to win, or Green Bay has to play with the lead. They have to keep something where
they're better from behind, but I know what you're saying.
I know, but they have to have the lead in this game. They can't do that because why? Man, the Eagles could get the ball with 9 minutes left and run the clock out.
I know. It's true. They did that before already. They've done that. They did that versus Steelers. The one thing I'm going to disagree with you on, Silz, in this game, and I'm going to disagree with Pumper as well here. I truly believe this. I do not think that Jalen Hurts has to be exceptional to win this game. I don't even think he has to be a needle mover, as Brian put it. I think he has to manage the game and do not turn it over, because how many times, though, in the history of the NFL have we seen teams that could run the ball like the Birds? Doesn't matter what you put in the box, they can run it, and they have a defense that is number one in the NFL. Now, that defense at any given moment could give up more points like they did versus the Commanders. At any given moment, that thing could break. I don't think it's going to, but it could. If that defense holds, if Saquon Barkley and the offensive line are operating like they have been, if Jalen Hurts adds the +1 in the running game, which he will naturally from his abilities, I don't think he has to be an exceptionally well passer in the playoffs. I really don't. I know you obviously want to see that. It would make our margin for error much greater. We would be able to win more handily if he could, but I don't think he has to be exceptional for us to win.
But you make the game closer when you say that.
You do. There's no doubt you make the game closer. You're right about that. But I'm trying to win the game
closer when what made that game last week? I know it was against Scrubs, but what made that game look so different? You know what it was? There was no margin where you thought anything could.
True.
And then look, I know the Giants blow, but I mean, it just looked different here and here. This is what hurts.
Yeah, passing games are different. That's why every owner in the NFL.
That's why I thought Kellen looked better as a play caller last week.
Yeah, but that's why every owner, including our owner in Philadelphia, covets a passing game. You're right. It's a wider margin for this is John McMullen. This right here, what you just said, is basically John McMullen's entire philosophy about football, is improving your margin of error. And he knows that the passing game does that the best. That was his whole take on resting Saquon. What improves your margin for error? Not resting Saquon gives you that. That's basically his whole philosophy. And when it comes to a passing game, you're 100% right about that. That's why that.
But you're paying for that margin to be there, and you're not utilizing that margin.
You're right. I know you're right. I'm not saying you're wrong about that.
Here's what you can't have Hurts do in this game Sunday. You can't have him take
picks,
sacks in this ball game, and you can't have 3 and outs. And he was notorious for this. He took 3 sacks a game this year. He had 38 sacks in 15 ball games. Do you know that with almost 100? I took that from that guy Pat show. That what's his name had over 500 attempts. He only had 14 sacks this year.
Yeah,
and Jalen had 140 more attempts, and he took twice as many more sacks. You can't have that taking you out of field position.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more side with you on this than I did on with Marcus Hayes, who kind of pushed back on you. But Especially Spells, your point is so much more true when you're a run offense, right? Because sacks, now you're in long distances. Now you know what I mean? Second and long, third and long, and you can't play the same way. So I think your point is a good one, especially with the way the offense is built and the way they're operating.
Correct.
Right now. Let's get to a couple more supers here. We got to go. Oh wait, we got that. Did we get that one from Pump Silz? I feel this is a bad move for Hurts to play. Yeah.
We got that.
All right, we got a couple more new ones here, guys. Thanks for all the supers and for all the love. Abe says the advantage that Green Bay has with running the ball like they do is being able to incorporate the play action passes where LaFleur opens the field with his crossing routes and puts the defense on their heels. 100%, Abe. That's why Cilio's point about Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter was such a good one. If those guys have a great game, Green Bay is going to be in prison trying to figure out how to move the ball, especially without Watson. You take out Jacobs from this game, you're going to be in good. You're going to be in a really good spot.
You'll have a comfortable win.
Yep, I agree. Marchetti checks in. Eagles need to start fast. Green Bay usually starts slow. Yeah, Eagles do start slow.
Yeah, but Nick, why say that when you know they won't? They haven't all year.
Well, let me play devil's advocate for a second here. All right, and I saw a stat that came out today. The Eagles are third in the NFL in first quarter scoring since December started.
Okay, well, that's a pretty good size.
That's a decent. So overall, yes.
Well, those games didn't have.
Overall, for the year, we have been slow in the first half.
But
in the last couple of weeks, they got it going.
Yeah, but again, you got to take 2 of those weeks out
because no Jalen. Correct.
No Jalen.
And by the way, last week they had 21 first quarter points. So that probably boosted that number up a lot.
I think that's a misleading stat.
It might be a little misleading because of those last 2 games. You're right, but I just thought it was worth putting out there. We haven't had 4 straight weeks of nothing burgers like we started the year with. John checks in. John, thanks, man. Tanner Goff is our only hope. Hurts has no advantage. 2903. He's here because of the team.
Guys are sick when you say that guy's name. I mean, come on. Hey, do you think that's a mistake though? Them putting him in the 3 hole and not having him in as a backup?
I do, because I personally am not a Kenny Pickett fan. I don't think he's great. I don't think he moves the ball well. I think it's a mistake too. Like, I think if you have a number 2 guy and you're going to have a quarter, because they've already committed to the number 2 being different style than Jalen, right? Like, it would be one thing if they went like the Lamar Jackson route and they got like, who was that guy who was the great backup for Lamar? And I don't think he's there anymore.
The Snoopy, the kid from Utah.
What's that kid's name? Snoop that's what they called him. I'm blanking on his name right now, but that's one approach. The Eagles have gone away from that approach, where they want a passer or a different style quarterback as the backup. Well, why not get the real passer? Kenny Pickett's like a middle.
Yeah, Tyler Huntley.
Huntley, that's it. Thank you, Jack. So I'd like to see Tanner McKay, because if you're going to go with the guy with a different skill set, well, then give me the good skill set. Don't give me a middle guy like Pickett, who's like kind of mobile, kind of a passer, not really a passer, does a couple things well. I'd rather have McKay. What's that?
He doesn't impress me.
Who, Pickett?
Yeah, he just doesn't.
Well, there's nothing about him that's impressive, so that doesn't.
Yeah, but Tanner does.
Well, Tanner's 6'6", which is cool. You can see over the line. He's pretty accurate, and I think Tanner's best attribute, at least that I saw, is he got through his progressions, man. Like, you could see him scan. Even under pressure, you saw him kind of boom, 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 boom. There was a couple plays there where he threw through his third or fourth progression.
I like the way he stands in the pocket.
Yeah, I agree. Lord's Grace says the Eagles are going to use the strategy they've been using all season, which is hold the ball, which is why Jalen Hurts will only go for 140. Lord's Grace, I don't know about that. We'll see, though. Lord's Grace again says they're also going to be conservative on how they run. Jalen Hurts will start panicking if he gets hurt. Well, I'm not going to project.
I think he's a tough kid. I don't think Jalen. One thing, Lord's Grace, you can't say a guy with a record that like has that kind of record panics. That's not something that goes. I mean, panic is not a conversation when it comes to Hurts. Inability to be in the pocket, rolling, taking sacks, all that shit. That's fair. But to say that he panics,
I said that yesterday. This is where I love
Jalen's games and panic.
Yeah, I agree. This is where I love Jalen's mindset, because it's a real art to not be phased by the moment, and he's not phased at all. One more super chat, and then we'll let you get to Mark Farzetta coming up. Clifton Parker checks in with $10. Clifton, thank you, man. He says Jalen by opinion, maybe the worst QB in the league. Come on. He embodies what you think of Philly, and he wins. He rises to the occasion, and as a fan, it is exciting. I agree. I see what you're saying. He's not the worst quarterback in the league, though. I mean, come on, Clifton. But I see what you're saying, where he rises up and he makes.
Would you not agree he's the worst pocket passer in the league? In the not in the league, in the playoffs?
In the playoffs, maybe. But
29-03,
the game's changing, and I don't. As great as that is, I think that even having a more versatile guy like a Josh Allen with the big arm, still want to have the big arm, but a guy that can move is valuable. Jordan Love, perfect example. He doesn't run, but he's mobile. He can move back there.
He's in the pocket well.
Yeah, but
yeah,
I don't want to go there. Clifton, thank you for your support, though. That's a couple super chats from me today, man. Appreciate that.
Hey, before I get to Farzetta, guess who just texted me, said about coming on tomorrow?
Eskin.
How
Nice.
you doing, huh?
Get him up.
Yeah.
Get him up.
Hey, so I just text Angelo, and Angelo goes like this. He goes, holy Christ, I got to tune in now. So Angelo's coming on Monday, too. Look at this here. Now, Eskin, I'm assuming, is the non-Italians because what is he, like a German guy?
All right, I'm getting out of here before we get into your Italian shtick.
Oh, hold on.
Goodbye, everybody. I love you all.
Hey, no, not me. I love only Italians. Okay? Hey, are you talking? We have 3 family members here